It's not like they took a bunch of random people off the side of the road, promised them one thing, and then, fed them a plate of scorpions. Like, these are people who agreed to it. And so you can't now be angry that you agreed to something and you're like, I just didn't know what I was agreeing to. You didn't? You're a 400-pound person being asked to run on a treadmill for 6 hours. You had no concept that that could be humiliating? One story that really caught my attention this week, and I ended up watching the documentary that went along with the drama. It wasn't what I was planning to watch, but I had to find out, what's the problem here? Was that Jillian Michaels, who was shot to fame through that show, The Biggest Loser, has major issues with the new Netflix documentary that has come out on the topic of that show. And she's really angry and says that the show's just rife with lies and it accuses her of all kinds of things. And she just can't believe that the people who made this documentary and the people who were interviewed in this documentary are just being so fraudulent and false about what actually occurred on the show. Now, if you haven't watched the documentary, it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. But I remember watching The Biggest Loser off and on. And I don't think I was ever under any delusion that the show was showing me how to lose weight. To me, it was always a show that was a game, because nobody has the time to exercise 6 to 8 hours a day to lose, in the case of one man, almost 290 pounds in 6 months. I mean, obviously the show was not set up to be a do as these do. Now, it could inspire you that over time you could lose the massive amount of weight you'd put on. But I think if anybody thought this show was supposed to be a manual on how to do this, that was probably false. So the show follows several contestants and their experience on the show and what they thought of the show and what the show really was in the culture and what it wasn't. I thought it was a really interesting documentary. You have both sides of the coin. Some people, it was a great experience, and they really enjoyed finding out that they could do hard things. It was an arduous journey. It was really rough on their bodies, but they knew what they were getting into. They knew it was a game show. And then there's another part of the show, and interestingly, it was seemingly mostly women who were really upset about the show and how the show dealt with them and how ashamed they were on the show and how embarrassed they were on the show and how the show just wanted to make fun of fat people and just mocked and humiliated you and then wrecked your metabolism and sent you on your merry way. So there was lots of bitter feelings about the show from their perspective. I think that the show, as it was trying to get off the ground, and obviously it's a TV show, it's a reality TV show. Reality TV is solely based on the idea that we're watching other humans be ridiculous. And that's how you get ratings. That's why people tune in. People like to watch other people being ridiculous, because then you have to feel like, thank God it's not me. Thank God I'm not the one looking like a fool. And it gives people this sense of pride and satisfaction that nobody's ever caught them in that compromising circumstances. They might have a plethora of other problems, but they don't have that problem. That's why reality TV was so popular for so long. But a lot of those shows did exploit people, and so the producers of the show who were talking about it try to put a positive spin on it. And they may very well have felt very positive about what they're making it. I think you have to watch something over time sometimes to realize maybe my motivation wasn't as pure as I thought it was, or maybe I did have pure motivation, but the results weren't great, and I probably should have tuned into that more quickly. But it's like you feel for the people who had a bad experience on the show. You feel for people who have always struggled with their weight, and then this show sort of exploited that struggle. But at the same time, it's hard, because how many times are you going to blame somebody else for the fact that you aren't where you want to be? And how many times are you going to choose bitterness rather than just taking responsibility for yourself? When you joined, I think the first set of people who were on that show could have maybe been like, oh, I didn't know I was signing up for this, because the show was also really awkward in the first couple of seasons while they're trying to figure out how much of this is going to be them working out and how much of it going to be kind of like games that we come up with. And some of the games were demeaning, let's make the fat people carry food in their mouth to build towers. That's a demeaning concept. So it feels hard to believe that the producers were all about championing these people towards life change. And then you got two guys carrying a giant Rice Krispie treat in their mouths together in order to build a tower. It's that didn't need to be necessary. I don't really see how that's going to help. And there were other things on the show, we're going to put a bunch of fat people in a room with a bunch of food and just watch them lose control. that doesn't help the concept of the show of like trying to help people. So it feels like if you were going to do challenges, they should have probably been like more like physical challenges or things like that, but not like I'm going to mock you. And of course, the show is full of people who are very heavy. That's the whole point of the show, who are struggling to exercise. So the concept of watching all these people fall down on treadmills or can't keep going or throwing up, working out to the point of throwing up. One woman like died, but then like was brought back because she tried to run too fast, a mile, and then like they had to airlift her off the beach. So there's a lot of things on the show that it does feel like it was kind of exploiting people. But if you know you're 400 pounds and you're going to be working out for 6 hours a day, and they were given contracts like this thick, I mean, every conceivable scenario was covered by the contract. It was going to be an arduous journey that did say you could die during this process. So to then be like, it was super hard and I feel like I was exploited. Well, at any point you could have walked away. You didn't have to sign the contract. That does mean somebody else would get your spot. But if it's not a spot you want to be in because you think it's embarrassing, then don't do it. So like, yes, maybe the show was embarrassing. It's an embarrassing setup. But nobody brought you on that show and said, hey, okay, so you're going to come here and we're going to all take a vacation in the south of France, and it's going to be like this really fun time, and you're going to have the time of your life, and you're just going to be, eating and drinking and having a fabulous time. I mean, it was always going to be a show in which you, at 400 pounds, was going to expose yourself, be weighed publicly, and you were going to be filmed while you lost the weight. An embarrassing scenario was probably going to come up. So it feels a little bit hard to like want to sit and sympathize with these people who are like, I couldn't believe that this is how it went. You can't believe it. Seems like it was pretty obvious that the show was going to, make hay while the sun shines. And if that means that they can film you throwing up on a treadmill while you fall down into it, it's a reality TV show. That's all reality TV shows are. It's just making fun of people in really terrible scenarios. And if you lost weight along the way, good for you. But the controversy is that Jillian Michaels, who did not want to participate in the documentary, is saying that there was lots of lies that happened and that she is being blamed for giving her group, because, she was a trainer on the show and Bob Harper was a trainer on the show, and he had his clients and she had hers, and they were sort of pitted against each other, that she was handing out caffeine pills. But she has all these emails to say, yeah, I was, but so was everybody. And that Bob Harper was giving these caffeine pills. So for him to act like I don't know anything about it. And the caffeine, she said, was only as much as a cup of coffee. But throughout the show, some episodes they were allowed to give caffeine, other seasons they weren't. And apparently they're choosing to cherry pick a season in which she had given caffeine pills to her subjects when the doctor had decided, on this season I don't want it. So she'd been like penalized that season for giving it. But the concept of using caffeine pills in order to keep people going for 6 hours in the gym wasn't something that was illegal or that the other people on the show didn't know about. And, there was lots of drama that sort of ended the show. People coming out and being like, my metabolism is wrecked because of the show. One woman coming out and claiming she'd been drugged on the show. She says her words were taken out of context. I don't know. But under all that scrutiny, NBC ended the show. So the documentary just kind of goes through, like, was it worth it for these people? And what does it say about our society that we would watch a show like that? And I guess what I think is, of all the reality TV shows, I found that one to be the least offensive. Now, first of all, I love reality TV show. I love it. I love it. And I'm not easily offended by the things people choose to do with their time. It's like people who are super offended by the concept of Fear Factor. All these people are degrading themselves. They agreed to it. It's not like they took a bunch of random people off the side of the road, promised them one thing, and then, fed them a plate of scorpions. Like, these are people who agreed to it. And so you can't now be angry that you agreed to something and you're like, I just didn't know what I was agreeing to. You didn't? You're a 400-pound person being asked to run a treadmill for 6 hours. You had no concept that could be humiliating. It's just hard for me to have a whole lot of sympathy for the people who are angry about it now. But I think that with the show, The Biggest Loser, well, it maybe didn't do everything exactly right, and probably those kinds of shows aren't super helpful. it did inspire some people to be like, that guy lost all that weight in 6 months. I bet I could lose some weight. That woman looks completely different than she did before, and she felt trapped in her body before, but now she feels like she has freedom. I bet I could be more consistent, you know. If these people did it, I bet I can. So probably there were some lows on that show. Again, I don't think asking people to build a tower out of food and watching all these big people do that, like, that's degrading and demeaning. Like, that seems completely to fly in the face of the narrative that they really cared about helping people. Not in that scene, y'all didn't. But the general gist of the show was what it was. It was big people trying to lose weight quickly. And if that inspired people to think, you know, I can be consistent in the gym and get real results, okay, good. You know, but it wasn't a prescription on how to do it. Jillian says that she's going to sue Netflix, and she's going to sue the creators of the documentary and all the people who she says lied about her in the show. Okay. She says she has receipts to prove that they were telling just straight lies. So we'll see. We'll see if she actually does, or if she's just drumming up some noise. Her association with that show, I wouldn't say hurt her. You know, she went on to be, you know, really well known for her workout videos and her supplements. And so really, who cares what anybody says about the show? If she knows it's not true, what does it matter? Is it really going to hurt her? I don't think anybody watches that show and is like, caffeine pills? God, no. As we all sit here with our cup of coffee, you know?